Hello, Julie here and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today's layout is for the cyber crop over at Mystical Scrapbooks. There are 3 challenges in the crop and this one requires you to use red, orange and yellow. You can use all of them, one of them, 2 of them, whichever you like, and also to use a stencil on your project. I'll put a link to the cyber crop in the description box below. My layout was inspired by a video I saw by Allison Davis, and I'll put a link to her video below as well. My photo is of a sunset we saw while we were cruising down the Nile. I thought the triangles in the background of the layout were reminiscent of pyramids. To cover the stencil section of the challenge, I'm using my Montmartre modelling paste and some acrylic paint called Sunshine Yellow. I'm going to mix these 2 together so I end up with a yellow paste. I then took a piece of yellow paper from my stash and with a Dusty Attic stencil called Crisscross, I put some yellow crisscrosses onto my orange cardstock. That is going to be used as one of my pattern papers. I won't be putting any paste or stenciling on my background. My background is a piece of white cardstock and I wanted to add a little bit of something to it but not overdo it, so I've got this Tattered Angels chalkboard spray in Valencia is the name of the colour, so it's an orange, and I'm just splattering that on the background. I started just using the nozzle out of the spray bottle but that was a bit too slow and tedious, so I got my fan brush, pushed it into the bottle and then used that. To create my triangles, I cut an assortment of squares. Now I cut all different sizes. The largest one, which is this one, is 6 inches, and then I cut one at 5 inches, then a couple at 3.5, 2.5, 2, 3, 1 1/4 and 1 inch, I think, were the sizes that I cut. And I just cut an assortment of pattern papers. I didn't work out a pattern at this stage. I thought I'd just wing that and cut the squares as I needed them once I got the basics in place. So I'm just going ahead and cutting a whole heap of squares. So the pattern papers I'm using, the red one is a Papercraft Native Breeze paper called Native Flock. The yellow paper is a Simple Stories Hello Summer paper called Catching Rays. The orange is of course the one that I just created using the plain cardstock and the yellow texture paste. And the stripe paper that I will use is Simple Stories Hello Summer range called Life is Good. To create my triangles, I mark in the centre of one edge. I do this for each of the squares that I've cut. Next I will use my trimmer and trim from that centre mark down to the opposite bottom corner. So you can see I've got the centre mark lined up there and I've got it coming down to one of the bottom corners. I'll then flip the piece and do exactly the same for the other side. You could do this with your scissors, but I'm not a good scissor user, so I tend to use my trimmer for these sorts of things. That way I know they're going to be straight. So I do that for each one of my squares. Time now to start playing around with the positioning of the triangles. I'm going to leave a fine white border between each triangle. So now it's just a matter of playing around, putting triangles where I think they might go, repositioning them and cutting any more triangles that I need to fit into a space that I want to fit a triangle into. So a bit of trial and error, cut it and see, play around. I do start with the 2 biggest triangles because they sort of take up most of the space and I can use the space around them building up with smaller triangles. And plus my photo is going to basically go through the middle of these triangles, so the bigger triangles are better there because I won't get lost behind the photo. So this is what I ended up with my triangles. Now I'm going to ink the edges of each one of these triangles. I'm going to use my art glitter glue to attach my triangles because it gives me a little bit of wriggle time. I'm also using my T ruler there to make sure that I get the first triangle nice and straight, because if I don't, when I attach the others and line them up, they will end up all out of kilter. This T ruler is a great tool if you have one. I'm sure that you use it as much as I use mine. If you haven't got one, I would suggest that you have a look at buying one. They're not expensive and they have so many fantastic uses. As I progressed through attaching my triangles, I brought my photo over occasionally just to check and make sure that I had them going wide enough and that the triangles would be still visible outside the photo, so towards the outside edges and top and bottom. So now it's time to work on my photo. As I said, this photo was taken when we were on a cruise on the Nile River in Egypt. One of the things that we did on this cruise was we went to a high tea at the Cataract Hotel, and this was taken from the balcony. I think it's about 8 inches wide, the photo, 8 by about 4.5 or something like that. So I'm going to mat that onto some white cardstock so that I get a nice thin white border, and I'll trim that down so that the border is even all the way around. The photo is then attached to a bit of scrap chipboard using the art glitter glue, and then I attach that to my layout using the same glue. And once again, I used my T ruler to make sure that my photo was on there straight. I used my scan and cut to create my title. The title is Sunset on the Nile, but I just started off with sunset. I wasn't too sure when I did this exactly what I wanted my title to be or how I wanted it to be laid out, so I just take one step at a time. I was going to use the negative of my cut to position my title, but I found it too hard because the black cardstock that was left over was too wide and I couldn't get a feel for how it was sitting on the layout, so I ended up just positioning it where I wanted it to be and using my T ruler once again to make sure that it was straight. Once I had it positioned where I wanted it, I used my glue to attach it to the page. So I decided that I would have the two main words in the black scan and cut file. So I cut out the word Nile, and then I'm going to use some stickers to put the words on the. The stickers are smaller, and that was the idea. I just wanted Sunset Nile to be the main thing that you saw as far as the title was concerned. I go through the same process to place this Nile. I use my T ruler and some glue. For the on the, I'm going to use these basic grey, basic micro mono is the name of the letters, and I'm just going to position them above the word Nile. I played around with the positioning of these stickers, and I ended up with the letters in this position. When I started this layout, this was my idea of it being finished, but when I got to that stage I thought it might look a bit bare, so I chose this pattern paper called Simple Stories Hello Summer Oh Happy Day, and I fussy cut a heap of the little flowers out. I inked around the edges of them and then attached them in the top left corner and bottom right corner of the layout. So that changed my layout from this to this. Now that's it for today's layout. don't forget I've got those links down below for you if you're interested in joining in with the challenge, or the link to the video by Allison, so check that one out as well. And if you're not already a subscriber, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. Thank you for being here with me today, and I hope you can join me for my next video.